psychological warfare.
Right.
You'll never get this. La 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 la. And then you got this.
And then I got it. Yeah.
Well, the next article talks about the cost of buying a home versus renting one is now at its most expensive. This from the Wall Street Journal. There has never been a worse time to buy instead of rent. It is now 52% more expensive to buy a home than to rent one because of the climbing mortgage rates. And bear with me, there's a lot from this article I want to talk about. The data here is really interesting, and it's good food for thought. So the cost of buying a home versus renting one is at its most extreme since at least 1996. The average monthly new mortgage payment is 52% higher than the average apartment rent, according to CBRE analysis. The last time the measure looked out of whack was before the 2008 housing crash. Even then, the premium peaked at 33%, as a reminder, compared to 52% in the second quarter of 2006. So that's already a wild swing. But yet people are telling you, oh, the market's not going to crash. Well, can the market really go higher than that?
Right.
I mean, is it really sustainable? If people can't buy and you have this flat market, I understand people are saying supply and demand. I mean, all these things. There's a great chart. Arun just pulled it up. If we do our job well, I can just go like this. And you'll see it.
Not on me, but for you.
But it's a pretty compelling chart where it goes to show you where, Q3 of 2006, where you started to spike up, and then obviously you walked into the Great Recession, 2007, 2008, and this was on the downward swing. And now you are literally visibly, palpably higher than the peak leading up to the Great Recession.
The difference this time around, though, is that we got a bunch of people sitting on very low interest rates. Mm-hmm. Right, over 90% of people have mortgage rates under 6%.
And this gives the people confidence, a lot of people confidence. To me, it scares me because that means things have to get that much worse this time in order for people to break their positions.
Yes.
And I'll go on from the article from the Wall Street Journal to kind of cap off this whole thing. In theory, buying and renting costs should be roughly matched, according to Matt Vance, head of multifamily research at CBRE. Although owners benefit when house prices go up, they also put more cash into their homes than tenants for things such as repairs and refurbishments. So I never really thought about it that way, but it sounds about accurate. It's very practical, right? Mm-hmm. From 1996 to mid-2003, the average cost to buy or rent did indeed work out more or less equal. And that, again, that makes me feel good about the idea of being a renter. It comes down to saving that nut. Right. To buy your down payment. And it's a lot easier than most people think when home affordability is normalized because you have programs like first-time home buyer programs, FHA, 3.5% down. You can get your real estate license, get 2.5% commission, only put 1% down. There are ways to do that if you're so inclined. Continuing on. After the global financial crisis, though, rock-bottom interest rates and plenty of housing supply meant it was 12% cheaper on average to buy a home than to rent one during the 2010s. The current hefty ownership premium reflects the surging cost of debt as rates on a 30-year mortgage reach 8%, as well as high house prices since pandemic lockdowns raised the value of in the domestic space. Now, I'll say it raised the value to a level that just the cadence of 40% in some areas in a matter of 2 years is fucking wild.
Right.
Wild. And people who are now trying to buy for the first time are experiencing the disconnect. It's crazy. A person taking out a 30-year mortgage today on a $430,000 home with a 10% down payment would fork out around $3,200 in monthly repayments, 60% more than if they had bought the same house 3 years ago. Rents have risen by less blistering 22% over the same period, though this was still moderately ahead of wider U.S. inflation.
Right. So the one bright side out of all of this, if there is one, right, is typically speaking when housing affordability is this far out of whack, or is out of whack, we should say, because it's never really been this far out of whack.
Yo, you're whack.
Yeah. Right. Landlords would typically be able to increase their rents. Mm-hmm. But with the amount of, like we've talked about on the show before, the amount of multifamily properties that are going to be coming online, right? Fannie Mae here predicts multifamily vacancies reaching 6.25% in 2024.
And I would say that will likely be in the areas where you've seen this massive amount of construction, and particularly in high-end luxury properties in the Sun Belt region of the United States.
Yes.
So think the lower states, Texas, Arizona, all the way through like certain parts of Florida and the southern part of California.
Right. So with that happening, then rents will typically come down, right? Because apartment buildings and those investors and those landlords cannot afford to have vacancies run on for too long, right? Especially if now we have $1.5 trillion of commercial real estate debt coming, due, or they're needing to refinance over the next 2 years, right? 2 or 3 years. They're going to need to prove that this thing is still generating income. Because at the end of the day, no matter what they do, they're likely going to have to come in with more cash out of pocket to even pay down the loan. If it's not performing well, forget about it. You're going to have to really come in with more cash.